Welcome to this special edition of the Details podcast, where I had the distinct honor of being able to sit down with a true legend in the world of motorsports, Jim McGee. Jim's name is synonymous with excellence, innovation, and a relentless pursuit of victory in the world of racing. Over his decades-long career, Jim has not only shaped the sport of racing, but also left an indelible mark on the lives of countless drivers, teams, and fans who have had the privilege of witnessing his genius firsthand. In this interview, we delve deep into the moments that defined his career, from the early days of building the car in the basement to the pinnacle of success at the Indianapolis 500. Jim's story is not just one of triumphs on the track, but also of perseverance, dedication, and a passion that fueled a lifetime of achievement. This conversation is more than just an interview. It's a tribute to a man whose contributions to racing will be remembered long after the checkered flag is waved for the last time. We invite you to join us as we explore the legacy of Jim McGee, a legacy that will continue to inspire for generations to come. Jim McGee, champion crew chief, right? The most celebrated crew chief in racing, open wheel racing history?
Oh, I don't know about that, but probably pretty close to it.
An incredible career. We're here at the Ray Skillman Museum, where they're doing a dedication to his office, and they're having a whole shindig here. And I've come back for my second part of interviewing you. After reading your book, I'm just so excited. I'm beside myself with excitement, actually. So let's just dive right in. So all of your career with doing so much stuff with cars, can you tell me the very first memory you ever have of washing, detailing, cleaning a car?
A road car?
Any car.
Any car?
Mm-hmm.
Well, I used to wash my dad's car in our driveway at home in Mattapan, Massachusetts. And, it was, to me, it was a pleasure. I liked doing it.
Okay, so now you're being from Boston. Before you got into car racing, you were in other sports and you were a hockey player.
Yeah, that's correct. I went to Boston Latin School at first, and it was a college preparatory school. And, it was German, English, French, Latin, mathematics, and none of that interested me and stuff. So I transferred out of there into Boston English, which was right across the street. These were in the city of Boston on the Avenue of Louis Pasteur. It's Harvard, Northeastern, and there was a college campuses all around there. And I had a job in the newspaper running copy after school and stuff like that. But I really wasn't looking to go to college. And so, I made it through. And I had a job then in the newspaper, and I worked in a gas station on weekends, and just odd jobs here and there.
Yeah. Well, what about this hockey that you played? What position were you playing in hockey?
I was a wing. I was small and light, and I was pretty quick on my skates. And there, in the wintertime, you were on the ponds every weekend, skating and everything, and I became a pretty good player. And the coach there, Bill Stewart, he was a NHL referee, and he was a great guy. And I was the smallest guy there, and he kind of looked after me, made sure I didn't get trampled by some of these bigger guys. Yeah, I don't think I was 5 foot tall at that time in my life. I didn't grow till I was later in my teens, late teens and early 20s, and I started growing a little bit.
Man. Did you, as you, were you in other sports other than hockey in your early days?
Oh yeah, we played basketball. We played baseball. You went with the seasons, you know. Football in the fall, hockey in the winter, baseball in the summertime, and you know, I spent a lot of time. I had a aunt and uncle, and my mom died when I was pretty young, and my dad he remarried probably about 6 or 7 years later, but I had an uncle and an aunt that had. He was a fireman, and they had a place down at Wareham, Mass, which was a really nice town that was right on the intercoastal waterways and stuff like that. So I had a great upbringing. I really did.
And it seems like from reading your book, you were pretty much busy all the time from the time you were a kid. Like, did you ever take a nap or go to sleep or anything?
No, we were. I had a paper out in the morning and the evening, and then a friend of mine he was older than me. His name was Albert Firm, and his father was a pattern maker, and he had a company which originated as a small company, but then it grew into a big company. And he worked on cars, and his dad was a pattern maker, and he was very talented in mechanics. And so I hung around with him. He was probably about 4 years older than me. And I hung around with him a lot, and actually there's a toolbox in here which his mother found, and it was the original toolbox that I had when I worked at his garage by his house.
Wow.
It's a set of Craftsman tools, and she packaged them all up, and I've had those about 10 years, and they're in there on one of the displays.
How neat is that?
Yeah.
They made it back.
They made it back, right.
So you're playing all of these sports, but then one day you go to the racetrack, to the small track. And what was it that when you got there, did you know immediately upon walking in there and hearing the roar of the engines, like, hey, this is something that I really am attracted to?
Yeah, I was really, it was Norwood Arena, and it was a quarter-mile paved track, and it was the latest state-of-the-art track. Had a clubhouse, had a restaurant, had a bar, beautiful high-banked track, and they ran modifieds and some stock cars and midgets every now and then. But it was just that my brother, you know, he's the one that took me there the first time, and it was the smell and the noise and the crowd and just the ambiance. It just kind of captured me. It really did. And from then on, we went every Saturday night, and it was a funny deal because I would go to church on Sundays, and I would walk by this Ford dealership, Cody Motors. It was on this Cummings Highway was the name of it. And I was going to church one Sunday morning, and I looked in the backyard of the dealership, and here was one of the stock cars that ran at Norwood Arena. So boy, when they opened there after school Monday, I went over there and I asked one of the mechanics, I said, who owns that stock car there that races mechanic? And they introduced me to this fellow. His name was Paul Duty, and he ran that stock car at Norwood Arena. And so from then on in, that was a regular stop for me, to stop by the dealership, and I would sit there and try not to be a pest, but talk to him about the cars and everything. And he invited me out to his house. He lived in Stoughton, Massachusetts. And I went out to his house, and he had 5 children and a wife, and he worked on this stock car in his basement in the wintertime, and then took it outside and worked on it there. So he and I became regular friends, and that's kind of how it all started, my interest in racing.
So, but before that, had you? I mean, being so mechanical and minded to understand engines and stuff. Before that, when you were just playing sports, was there interest in motors, engines, or anything?
No interest. It was all sports, hockey,
yeah,
basketball, baseball. No football.
Yeah, so gosh, it's not like, you grew up doing that and it just transitioned. It was, you went to the track, you saw it, you smelled the smell, you said, I want to do this.
Yeah. And the sports part of it was all CYO, the Catholic Youth Organization. They had different leagues and stuff like that. So I did that until the racing deal came on. And, the sports kind of, I played hockey and I was pretty good. I played hockey in high school, and that was it. I played some baseball, but not the kind, that I was looking to become a player.
Wow.
But the racing attracted me, and so then I was, 100% interested in racing. And my brother was influential in taking me to the racetrack and meeting the guys. But then I found, once I met this Paul Duty, he introduced me to another fella. His name was Dick Carmen, and he worked for Raytheon. He was an engineer, and he was the one that had the interest in Indianapolis. Mm-hmm. And he had Floyd Clymer. He published a yearbook every year, and it was all about Indy. It was about the cars, the design, not as much record keeping as it was information about racing. And he had a library of those things, and he also ran a stock car at Norwood Arena. And so then I started splitting my time a little bit more with him than Duty, because I didn't want to be a Ford mechanic, and I had a job in the newspaper. I ran copy after school and on weekends between the department stores, bringing in the copy that they were going to publish the next day and so forth like that. So I did that for a while and everything, but I became more interested in what this fellow Dick Carmen was doing. And actually, after it was like 2 or 3 years and stuff like that, and he was a craftsman and a great engineer. And he decided one day, we were out talking, we used to go, after we worked, we went to this restaurant, and he had a beer and stuff like that, and we had a little food. And he kept talking about he had this driving interest as far as building a car at Indianapolis. He studied all those books, and in his engineering mind, he knew he could design an Indianapolis car. And I said, "You're kidding me." No, he said, but he said, "We got to find some money, somewhere to do it." And I said, "Well, where are we going to build it?" And he said, "In the basement in the cellar of my house." And he's got 4 kids and a wife and everything like that. And I said, "You're kidding me? Shouldn't we, have a garage?" And he said, "Well, we got a garage, added onto the house." I said, "But what do we do in the wintertime?" He said, "Oh yeah, we'll have to do some work in the basement." So anyways, this went on for quite a few years, and in his spare time, he was drawing up an Indianapolis car, and I was working in the newspaper, and I was doing pretty good. I made a little extra money here and there and stuff like that. So he said, okay, Jim. He said, we're going to build an Indy car. I said, you're kidding me. He said, no. He said, I've got some drawings already drawn up and so forth. And he said, I'm going to buy some tubing, some 4130 chromoly tubing. And I said, yeah, but he says, we got hacksaws, we got files, we got, torches, so we can do it. And I said, oh, well, okay, I'll help you. And so we went ahead, and he had this design, and we built a frame similar to the IndyCar frames in the basement of his house. And, this was crazy. And I was doing pretty good. I worked in a gas station then on weekends and in the newspaper. So I was making a little bit of money. And so he said, yeah, but he said, we need to buy some spindles, and we need to buy some torsion bars, and we need to buy steering gear, and we need to buy a rear end. And I said, well, let me see what I can do. And I don't know how I did it really, but I worked in a gas station then too, along with my newspaper job. And then this Paul Duty, he got me a flat rate job. And because I was a pretty good mechanic by then, I could flat rate passenger cars. And so my schedule was that I would, after I graduated from high school, okay, I'm taking a big jump there, but not a big jump, but I graduated from high school, and then I got a job flat rating cars at this Cody Motors, that Paul Duty. He helped me get a job there. So I had a job there, and then I had a job in the newspaper. And so what I would do would be, I would go to work, get through all my work and everything. I could lay down on a bench for about 3.5 hours. Get up, go home, have breakfast, and flat rated. Went home and took a nap. Went in to work at midnight, and then it started all over again.
That just does. And then you worked on the car with Carmen.
Carmen, yeah.
In between times.
Yeah, it was. I mean, I don't know how you do things, but I did it.
I guess because it being your passion and like really just being enamored with getting in there and working on the cars. And so thinking of that, what was like the very first jobs that you were doing to cars? Did you start out by like changing oil and then moving to like putting a gap on a spark plug? Like how the heck do you just...
You mean work at a Ford dealership?
Yeah, just because you were brand new to being a mechanic.
The other thing I did, and I didn't throw that in, I worked in a gas station, and the gas station had a repair shop. And I used to work there, and there was this one fellow. His name was Joe Pistello, I remember his name, and he was a heck of a mechanic. And he taught me a lot about the mechanics of a passenger car and stuff like that. And, the whole thing kind of was like a treadmill, but you were doing something all the time.
And like your mind was just built for that. Like personally, I can make a car shiny, but I am not mechanical at all. Like I could take it apart, but I could never put it back together. Yeah. But did you just look at that and it automatically just made sense? Like this goes here, and it just came together for you?
You had to have a little bit of a tutor there too, helping you along. And also, when I was learning fabrication skills and a little bit about the design work and stuff. And we actually built an Indy car in his basement.
Now, in those days, it was before everybody had the big trucks and 50-person teams all this.
Yeah.
Like
had a station wagon or a pickup truck and a trailer. That's it. That's how you went to the racing. And
Were the other teams in Indianapolis at that time, were they building their own just like that? Was it kind of very grassroots?
they were all in California, in the warm Midwest and stuff like that. There was nothing. New Jersey, this Ed Stone, he had a speed shop there, and he had midgets and stuff like that. And a couple of New Jersey outfits tried and built Indy cars and so forth, but this car that we built is here today, and we built that thing from the tubing. I bought the spindles, the torsion bars, part of the rear end and so forth like that. And the body we built out of junkyard parts. I would go to a junkyard, and the body, I would take a 1950 Mercury, had a rear fender panel, and that fender panel, and this was all Dick Carmen, he figured out a way to build a body just like that Roadster over there, the Dean Van Lines car, with those curves. We didn't have a metal hammer or anything like that. And when we first took that thing to Trenton, New Jersey, those the mechanics like Watson and those guys come over, and they said, "Where'd you buy that car?" We said, "We built it." He says, "No way. There's absolutely no way." "And you're from where?" I said, "From Boston." He said, "Real no way." But anyways, this fellow here in town here, he's got the car. His name is Phil Gumpert, and he runs it in the vintage racing series. It was great because I had so much of a learning curve going on, and I didn't even know it, by working on passenger cars and working on an Indy car, because there was none in existence in Massachusetts, and from Dick Carmen, he was a genius. If he had ever decided, or somebody, a good car owner with some money ever hired him, he would have been right up front at Indianapolis. He was an amazing person. Yeah.
Well, let's get to where you go to Indianapolis for your first time.
Yeah. What happened was, when Clint Bronner came to the racetracks, he came by himself. He had his station wagon and our pickup truck and a trailer and his parts, and he came by himself. And so he needed somebody to help him push the cars around and, do things. And we would wait, like at Trenton, New Jersey, we'd wait at the pit gate. And when we saw him coming, or we would drive around, and if we saw where the motel was that he was staying in, we'd go find him and volunteer our services, for the weekend. And so that's how we got to know him. We'd go to Trenton, we'd go to Langhorne, we'd go to Syracuse, most of the races around the East Coast. And then when we were building the Indy car, he and I and Carmen, we really established a nice relationship. And so if we needed to know an answer to a question or a problem, or what should we do, we could call him in Phoenix and he would help us. And so after, it was a couple of years probably, he was at Indianapolis and everything like that. And Trenton was before the Indianapolis race. And he said, "Hey, are you doing anything now? Or are you working?" I said, "Yeah, I'm working, but I got a job in a gas station and one in the newspaper at night and stuff like that, but I can get some free time." And he says, "Well, why don't you think about maybe come in Indianapolis. And he saw the car that we had built in 61. That's what it was. And so I said, okay. And I packed up my bags and I quit my job. My dad said, you're crazy, But anyways, and I headed for Indy. And I had made arrangements with Clint before that. And, there was probably 3 weeks or so between Trenton and the opening of the track at Indianapolis. So I jumped in my 53 Ford, all rotted out, and headed for Indianapolis. And so I get to Indianapolis, and I went over to the Speedway, and you couldn't get in or anything like that, but I had Clint's phone number, and I called him, and he said, oh, okay, I'll fix it up. So I got in, and he said, I got some bad news, Jim, for you. He said that I was real behind in getting the cars ready, and these 2 guys came, and they worked with me day and night, and so I promised them that they could come to Indy and I'd hire them for the month. And I said, oh, that's tough. And so I hung around there.
Dig a little bit deeper into that. When he said those words to you, it wasn't, oh, that's tough. That had to be like a punch in the gut. And
well, I mean, when you're a kid, you don't take things that serious,
Yeah.
I could always go home and I had a job. That's the way I figured it. So I said, oh, well, I'll hang around. And he said, I'll ask around to see if anybody needs any help. Because he knew I was pretty mechanically inclined and could help some guys. So after about a week, I was getting thin on money. I didn't have a job. And I could go home and, I had an income at least. I could get one of my jobs back. So I was there about a week, and I was running low. And so I went over there to the garage one morning, and I was going to tell him, that I was going to head back. And he came over and he motioned me over, and he said, hey, Jim, he said, can you still stay here and work? And I said, yeah, why? He said, well, those guys I hired, 2 guys, they went into Whitefront. Whitefront was a bar where all the guys hung out after, work and stuff like that. He said, my guys ended up in a big fight in this Whitefront, and he said, they're in jail. And I said, you kidding me? He said, I really need somebody to come to work, and if you can, you got a job for the month. And so I said, all right. Oh, no, I started home. That's what happened.
And
yeah,
I
bypassed that deal.
And you know what? That piece right there, and we'll edit it so it all fits together, right? But that's the moment that you were on your way home and you got to the Ohio state line,
Yep.
and then you had an epiphany, and it seems like that moment may have been, maybe next to meeting your lovely wife, one of the most incredible life-changing moments. Walk me through that how you got to the state line and how you found it in you to turn around and go back.
Yeah, I called my folks and said, I'm coming home because I need to go to work. And so they said, fine. And I started driving, and I started thinking, God, I'm not going to be able to even try this for another year at least and stuff like that. And I thought, well, maybe I can get a job in a gas station or something like that. It wasn't get back and go to Indy. It was just find a way to subsidize myself so I could stay a little bit longer. And, I got to the Ohio state line, and I said, this is it. If I go home, and I'm not going to be able to do this for another year. And I turned around and went back and slept in my car in the parking lot there that night. Got up the next morning, and drove over there because Clint gave me a garage parking pass, and parked in the garage, and he was outside the garage, and he motioned me over, and he told me what happened, with the kids, and he said, "Can you stay here this month?" And I said, "I can if I get a few bucks." And he says, "You got it." So that was it.
That's so cool. It seems like you really had, in your formative years, so many people that kind of held their hand out to help you get to the next level, or to teach you stuff, mentors. And Clint sounds like he was
the one,
Yeah.
Clint had the patience, and he knew if you were a good person or a bad person. Clint was the type of guy. His favorite deal was getting in his golf cart at night, and he would go through all the garage trash cans that were outside in Gasoline Alley, and he would take parts the guys would throw out, and back to the shop and everything, and if they were good, he knew how to put them back in service and stuff like that. He was a master machinist and a craftsman, and he knew how things work mechanically. And I can remember he would take, guys would throw pistons away that had too many miles on it, or connecting rods and brake pads and all this kind of stuff. But Clint would fix them up, and that's why Dean Van Lines was pretty successful in its day, because he could work on a real low budget, where all these other guys, they were parts exchangers, put new parts in, new parts. And that was one of the big reasons that I learned a lot, was because of Clint, and how thrifty he was, and how he could figure out if something would make it or could make it. And we would run a race and would finish ahead of these guys, and he'd go over to the guy and say, "Hey, you know what pistons are in that car that just beat you?" He said, "The ones you threw in the trash can." And these guys would shake their heads, He was, they used to call him a junk man, but you'd learned an awful lot.
Well, and I think I read that it's, you said if this piece can make it for 500 miles, it can make it for 10,000 miles, and now it's broken in and ready to go.
Yeah, that's true.
Well,
yeah. He had an old saying, "Man made it, man can fix it," and that's what he did. When he was young, he worked on irrigation pumps and that kind of stuff. So he had a good background as far as mechanics and design and that kind of stuff. And he was a tough old critter, I'll tell you.
So thinking back to in working on the cars in a pit crew or a crew, at that time, how many people did you have on the team, and how did they divide the jobs up?
Well, we had people, but they were either worked in the post office. They had regular jobs. They either worked in a gas station, or they took the month of May off so they could be at Indianapolis. But crew-wise, it was just him and I, driving to the races and stuff like that. And every now and then, one of his friends or somebody from Phoenix would come back for a couple of weeks or something like that. But no, it was a two-man deal.
Gosh, so when you...
And that was the beauty, because I got to do a lot of things that if he had 4 guys working for him, you wouldn't get to do anything. But he would see what you could do and give you the job. And that was important, because a lot of the chief mechanics there, you would do nothing but wash parts and cars and, do little medium jobs, but not anything with responsibility, where Clint would look at what you could do, and then he would give you the job.
It sounded like he was a little bit gruff, or
Oh,
rough
boy,
around the
was he-
edges.
was he
but
rough.
but what you just said is such an important aspect of good leadership, of putting
Yeah.
people into the right position and then not micromanaging the heck out of them.
And he was married, and his wife Kay, she was a wonderful person, and you know, after a while, I mean, I was part of the family. You know, they didn't have any children, so I think he kind of took me on as a kin.
Well, tell me a little bit about the wreck that happened on the way from one race to another, where the pickup truck flipped over.
Oh, that was.
And we're fast forwarding a little bit, I know. But.
Yeah, that's when Mario was driving for us, and we were doing some tire testing for the Firestone at the Speedway, and Mario was running the final race, sprint car race, in USAC, and they ran Salem, and then we had the pickup truck with a camper shell, and it had all the parts, spare parts and stuff like that, and then we had a station wagon, and his wife's convertible. She had a convertible, and so the station wagon that took care of the roadster. That towed the roadster home, and then we put a lot of spare parts. But the big carrier was the pickup truck and the dirt car, and that pickup truck had all the parts, pistons, valves, you know, rear end parts, all the stuff it took us to run the year. And that was towing the dirt car. And then I was driving the convertible, and that had a little utility trailer on it. So those are the two cars and a utility trailer. And we had done a test at Indy for Firestone, and Mario had run a 250-mile race at Salem. And actually, he won the race. And, you know, so the three of us, Clint, Mario, and myself, we headed for Phoenix to do a test there. And we were we were all pretty tired because we had been working late hours and so forth. And so we started out, and we had to be in Phoenix like on a, I don't know, it was in 3 days, you know, ready to test. And so we were going out, driving straight through, of course. And we were in Weatherford, Oklahoma, never forget it. And we stopped, and we had a bite to eat. And then Clint, he had some bennies, you know, and he said, "Okay, here's a benny. You take that, and you know, we'll just keep going as long as you want." So we do that, and then we take off, and we're going down there. And I've often traveled that road all the time. It's a 2-lane divided highway with crossovers, you know, every now and then. And so Clint was leading, and I was behind him, and Mario was in the station wagon. And we're going down this road, and, you know, Clint's in front, and there was some cars just up ahead, and they were in the right lane, and we were on the other lane. And all of a sudden, they decided to take a left in front of Clint. And they did, and you know, he corrected because the trailer jackknifed on him when he had to put the brakes on that hard. And you know, he hit the deal, and he went off the road into the median, and the race car broke off. The trailer broke off the pickup truck, and the pickup truck flipped, and it landed in the median between the two roads. And so we pulled over, and we jumped out, and we go over there, and it's upside down, and he's in it, and he's moaning and groaning, you know, and we got him. He rolled the window down, and we said, "Clint, what's happened? Well, how are you? How are you?" And he said, "Oh," he said, "I'm bleeding." He said, "I'm bleeding." He said, "I don't know." I said, "Well, we better get you out of there before this thing goes on fire." So we drug him out through the window. You know, couldn't open the doors and stuff like that. We laid him on the ground, and he wasn't bleeding. It was the transmission oil from the transmission was dripping through the gear shift deal and on his head, you know. So we finally got him down, got him out of there, and then the state cop comes along, you know, and he said, "Get a couple of wreckers out of here. We just gotta rip this thing, get this thing off the highway, open this road up." And Clint, by then he got his senses, and he had this big pitchfork. He used to, it was a bar, a big pry bar, you know, and he's got that in his hand, and the cop's telling him what he's got to do, you know, and he takes that bar and he sticks it right between this state cop's legs, and he says, "You ain't touching a thing of mine." He said, "This is my living, it's my livelihood," and he said, "Your people in this town have destroyed that, and you're not touching anything until I get it out of here." And the cop kind of stood back because he was ready to fight. I mean, the cop would have had to pull his gun and shoot him.
And they said that you guys just had a whole bunch of stuff thrown into the back. It wasn't really organized, so it was strewn all over.
But it was all in cardboard boxes.
Yeah.
You know, it was pistons and rings and valves and, you know, all kinds of car parts. And when it landed a camper shell, it just exploded and stuff went everywhere. And so we stayed there, and they built a little bypass there around where all the stuff was laying. And we started making a pile, you know, of putting stuff together. And finally, we were so tired and wore out. Mario had just run a race, and you know, we had done this tire test, and so we went home and got a motel right close by there, and the next day we went out there, and Dean sent one of his moving vans out, and we just shoveled everything in there and all that. But that was a heck of a deal. That was that was something you wouldn't want to have happen.
Man, no, you wouldn't.
No.
All right, let's fast forward a little bit into, and we'll go, 69 was a big year.
Yep.
Let's talk a little bit about that kind of leading up to actual Indy 500 championship and some of the stuff that you guys went through in the build up to that.
Okay, we built a, in between that, we built a lightweight roadster for Mario. Beautiful car. It was a beautiful car. We had it, all this light stuff in it and everything like that. And he ran it, and it wasn't quite as competitive. It wasn't right, let's put it that way. And so we were at a tire test in Trenton, New Jersey. And Firestone, because we did some testing before, they liked what we were doing, and so they, you know, were friends. And we asked them if we could have Roger Ward was doing the testing, take a ride in the car, you know, and they said, "Go ahead, yeah." So we put Ward in the car, and he drove it for about 20 laps and came in, and he said, "What kind of laps is he running?" And we said, "Oh, he's running within a second or a second and a half of what you're running." He says, "You better hire that kid." Anyways, we were testing at Trenton, New Jersey, and with this lightweight roadster, trying to get it Mario comfortable in it, and Ward took a ride in it, and he said, as fast as that kid was going, he says, "You better hire him because he's doing a hell of a job." And so what we found the problem to be, we had a, instead of the normal steering gear, we had put a lightweight rack and pinion steering gear, which all the letter cars were running now and everything like that. And that was the problem we found out. Because the driver sat in the car, and as the wheels went up and down, it steered. And Mario was able to compensate pretty good with it, but Ward said, "You fix that and that'll be a pretty good car." So we fixed that, and we ran the rest of that year out with that car, and you know, we didn't set the world on fire, but we didn't, and that was the transition from the Roadster to the rear engine car. And the guys were buying Lotuses and different Brabhams and stuff like that. And Clint was he was pretty sharp about figuring out which way to go with what kind of a car and all that stuff. And so John Zink, Denny Moore, and this Jim McGee, they were doing. We were connected really well with Firestone because they respected the job we did for them, and we gave them a lot of good results. And so McElreath was testing at Indianapolis with the Brabham, and he crashed it. And so that ended that test and everything. So John Zink, they were out of Tulsa, Oklahoma, and Clint offered them a deal. He said, let us take that car, the wrecked car, he said, and we'll take the frame to Phoenix, and we'll build you a brand new frame, and we'll build one for ourselves. And they said, sure, we'll do a deal like that. So we took that frame to Phoenix, and you know, we built 2 frames. And that was the advent of the 12 car, the rear engine car. And, you know, we took that car to Indianapolis. That's the first place we raced it. We still had that Roadster, so we ran the Roadster at the opening races at Phoenix and Trenton. And then we go to Indianapolis with this new car. And, you know, it was, you know, we actually, to build that car was amazing that we were able to do it, but we were able to buy a lot of the parts from Brabham. Brabham had wishbones and stuff like that, and we copied all that kind of stuff and made replicas of it and so forth like that. And we had no experience except the experience that Zink's guys, Denny Moore, had. And we were all friends. We all worked together in those years. And so they gave us some of the stuff, setup stuff and everything that they were running and so forth like that when we took the car to Indianapolis. But, you know, Mario got in the car and he thought it was, it's okay, you know, and stuff like that. Except we kept bottoming, and we kept putting heavy and heavier springs, and we thought, wow, we must be doing something wrong. We can't, something's wrong somewhere, you know. But every time we put heavier springs, we went faster and faster and faster. And finally, when we built that frame, Eddie Kuzma, who was a custom bodybuilder, was in California. And Kuzma did a lot of work on dirt cars and some rear engine cars, but not many. And so with the chassis we had, we took that there and we told them we had to put, you know, 75 gallons. We had to put 35 gallons on each side of fuel hanging on the outside of the frame. And so he was an amazing guy, you know. He and we were working at A.J. Watson's shop, and he had a Lotus, and Kuzma's shop was about 25 miles away, and so Kuzma built these tanks, you know, and to fit the body that we had, we ended up getting a body from Brabham, and we, you know, had this problem with the car bottoming, but every time we put heavier springs on it, the car would go faster and it would bottom more. But we didn't realize in those days the Lotuses and some of the Formula One cars, they were real sleek, you know, the bodies. And here we had this tanks hanging out on the side of a tube frame. And when it would go to Watson, he had a lot of engineers that hung around there from McDonnell Douglas and stuff like that. and they used to call it a bathtub. What are you building, a bathtub? You got this big deal, looks like a bathtub, and the driver sits in the middle of it. We said, I don't know, that's the only thing we could do. And that year, we finally realized that we were making downforce. We had there's tubes that run down the side because we couldn't put the oil lines and the water lines in the cockpit, so we put them on the outside. I mean, it was like backyard engineering.
Yeah.
And so
there was a problem, you found a solution.
Yeah, we did. And the car was amazing. It just was easy to drive, and Mario wanted a Lotus still because he thought, well, maybe it's him. He's got a technique. And so Firestone bought him a Lotus, and he took it out and he ran it about, I don't know, 5-6 runs, came in and told him, you can have it back. And that was the start of, we really had some success going because we had a big advantage and didn't know it. Nobody knew it. They just would look at that car and shake their heads. Yeah.
And then after that, they would just look at the backside of that car.
Yeah.
So let's talk about like when you're at the race and you win. We'll just go to the Mario, to 69, to that race specifically. Leading up to that race, did you guys feel really strong? Like you were like just confident that you were going to win?
No, in fact, we had a heating problem at that time. And so, that's where Clint was really savvy. He says, well, we'll just put a radiator on it. So we didn't qualify with this radiator because it was up beside his head. You can't say it's on the other side. And we took it off for qualifying. And, when we qualified, then they said, no, you got to run the car like it qualified. So we figured we'd put it somewhere. It's right up here, where it you really didn't see much of it, and stuff like that. So they let us do that, and it was that car. I mean, when it finished the race, there were teeth off the rear end gear, and I mean, it was amazing that it finished, but it did.
Well, how many people were on the team at that point?
Well, there were 5.
Okay.
Clint, myself, we had a young kid, and then we had a kid from England that worked for us on the Lotus deal. Yeah, there were 5 of us.
Okay.
Yeah.
And what's the feeling like when you do hit that pinnacle? I mean, it's still early in your career at that point. And how do you guys handle that happening and the success and winning? And
well, we were just, we had a combination. We had Mario, who had, he was quick, and we had Clint, who was experienced. I was there, and I took real pride in my work, and I think I was able to work with a clear mind and just focus on what I was doing, and we had a great reliability record, and we had good pit stops and stuff like that. But a lot of it was new, but Clint would let you do anything. They were most chief mechanics. They wouldn't let you do anything. They'd let you wash parts and clean the cars and do this and everything, but they wanted to do everything themselves. Where Clint liked to tinker, and he liked to give you a job and see how you did with it. If you did a good job, that was it. He was he was the best guy to work for because you got lots of experience.
That's something that I read from everybody who spoke in your book, talked about your leadership skills. And being a good leader incredibly hard because most leaders are, like you said, they're kind of top down and they want to micromanage. And Clint sounds like he was really good at putting the people in the right seat on the bus and then letting them do their thing.
Yeah.
So as you start thinking a little bit more forward to the first time when you became a crew chief, and now you have the responsibility of the people who are working under you, everybody said that you were incredible. Like you were just always level-headed. You never lost your, went berserk on anybody, and you were just very driven and always upbeat. How did that happen? How did you have that within you?
Well, I had a criteria, and racing to me was just a job. It was a job, and you had to do the job. And you had to put your faith in good people. And that's what you did. If you had somebody that, paid attention and was really on the ball, that's what you did.
Well, it sounds like it worked well.
Clint would let you do anything, and I had a little bit of that, but not as much as he did. He was, he'd rather fix things that were broken than, work a little bit more on the reliability and that kind of things.
Well, as you started moving into that role, how did you organize yourself just from past experience and you knew how you wanted it? Or how did you look at your team as you were building it?
Well, I tried to hire the right people, and that was the biggest thing. I surrounded myself with really good people, not wise guys and not, guys that, had their own ideas and so forth like that. Just guys that would go in there and focus on the job and get it done right.
So as you look back through your entire career, what do you think some of the biggest, most changing advancements that you were a part of into the racing cars? I mean, there's been so many because you started at a point where you guys were building something in a basement, for goodness sakes. Right. And and you went all the way up to the very top. So you've seen so much innovation.
Yeah, but a lot of times we did things that were more practical. We didn't go way out, there's an old saying that Clint used to say, and there's no magic in motor racing. It's all just common sense, and use your common sense before you start thinking outside the envelope. Look around at what's going on and what people are doing, and you're not a copycat, but you're picking the good things you see out of each operation. But really, the biggest thing was it had to be reliable, practical, and it had to get to the end of the race, and it had to be consistent throughout the race. And we worked on reliability, little things, little things that were detail.
And a lot of it was getting to the end of the race, really,
That's right. Yeah, we had a great finishing record. Yeah, we ran all day. That was the name of the day.
Well, I know that you had so many of the guys that helped you. Or is there anybody that you could think of in particular that you really kind of took under your wing and really helped develop their career?
Oh, yeah. A lot of the guys, that worked for us went on to become chief mechanics. And because we didn't have any tricks. Everybody thought you had to have tricks. Well, we didn't have any tricks. We just had good, solid reliability. Finish the race. That's the name of the game. Yeah.
So after you were with Mario and you guys moved on to your next venture, so I look at like professional athlete players, and they go from one team to another. It seems like you would be really kind of mentally married to the team that you're working with. How is it to just pick up and change? And as you did that, was it kind of like just climbing up a ladder to a next rung on every team?
Yeah, well, when Mario left, he went to work for the Granatellis, and you know, my next big break was going to work for Penske. I worked for Granatelli, and you know, Bob Fletcher, who was a small guy, and you know, Roger, he had his eye on me because he used to spend a lot of time talking to me. And it was a big move for me because, you know, Monty was from Phoenix and I had lived in Phoenix a long time, and to move back to Pennsylvania, that was a big jump.
Yeah.
And, you know, she was the one that really, she just said to me, she said, "Do you think going to Pennsylvania is going to better your career?" And I said, "Oh yeah." She said, "We're going," you know.
And you didn't have
I mean, we had 4 kids and, you know, all that stuff, and they were brought up in Phoenix and all that kind of stuff. And it was a tough move. She really was the one that kind of
tough. And then when you got there, you guys got robbed.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
Which makes it even tougher.
I know.
And that probably makes you second guess the decision.
Yeah, we walked into the house and the kids. It was a condo, and the kids went downstairs and they said, "Hey, well, where's my this and where's my that?" And we said, "It's there." No, it wasn't. It was all the guy next door. His kid was a mafia, and he kind of robbed us.
Man, terrible.
Yeah.
So then we're racing and we're on these teams. When you left Penske, I guess what's hard for me to wrap my head around, if I'm with this company,
yeah.
like I feel like so dedicated to it, and I would never want to wear another company's logo.
Yeah.
But when you're doing this, you really went from team to team to team.
Yeah.
And is that just something that everybody does in that field, or does
No.
anybody stay in one team their whole career?
No, I made some good moves, and you know, had I stayed with Roger, I probably might have been better off. I don't know, but you know, working for Newman Haas and those type of teams, you know, you learn. I went to work for the Granatellis. That wasn't the place.
It doesn't sound like that was that fun.
No. But the rest of them that I worked for they were good teams.
It sounds like Pat Patrick is somebody who weaved in and out of your life multiple times.
Yeah. Well, Pat, he made Roger Penske. See, Pat was the money guy. Pat was a wildcatter, and he was making money hand over fist. He had Learjets and all that kind of stuff. And in fact, you knew the story about us trying to hire Roger and to drive. And you know, the same token, when I went to work for Roger, he just kind of said, you know, come to work for me. Roger was great, and he was good. Looking back on it, I don't know whether I made a mistake or not leaving, but I was successful. And you know, Pat, he just gave you your head, you know, said, "Go ahead, what do you need?" You know, and but they were both great competitors. I mean, if it hadn't been for Pat Patrick, Roger Penske probably wouldn't be where he is today. And we tried to hire him as a driver. Did you know that story?
No, tell me that.
Oh yeah, yeah. When in the middle of that whole fiasco, you know, I'm having to think back quite a few years. You know, we went to Raceway Park and they had a sports car race, and Roger was running the Xerox Special over there, and he was pretty good. And so Pat went to Penske and he said, "How about you coming to do a tire test for us with Firestone?" And that was about the time he was going, you know, after his first dealership and stuff like that. And and the bank was going to loan him a bunch of money, and the bank told him, they said, you go drive for one of those Indy cars, you're not getting any money. And so he turned us down, and that's when we hired Mario. And halfway through it all with Mario, he kind of thought, did I make a good move or a bad move, you know? But as it turned out, no, he made the right move. And Mario made the right move, so.
Well, what do you feel like, I mean, with so incredible many achievements, when you look back over the course of your career, what do you feel that the pinnacle was, or one of the brightest moments for you?
Oh, there were so many of them.
I know.
There really were a lot of them. I think winning Indy the first time was that was a big deal. Yeah, that was big. But I had a lot of successful people work for me, and great car owners. I can't think of a bad car owner. You know, even Granatelli. I got along good with Andy, but he was a tough cookie. Yeah.
Well, when we went out to dinner, like one of the things that I found really bonding with you over was your love of your dog. Have you always had dogs your whole life?
Oh yeah. I had an old dog, Pal, when I was a kid. He used to sleep on the porch, and I'd get up in the morning and go out and shake himself off, shake the snow off him and stuff. But yeah, I love dogs. I love them, you know.
So with what you were doing with work, from the beginning, like working multiple jobs, how did you find the time to have work-life balance with your wife and your family?
That was tough, you know. She was a miracle. She did. She took charge, you know. She did. She enabled me to go and do my job and not have to worry about a lot of the small things. She still does, believe me. I'm not computer literate, and she is. And she's 2 years older than me, and she's sharp as a tack. She is. She's a wonderful woman. Yeah. We've been married 60 years.
Yep. And even in the book, she even mentions, she's like, I never worried about him cheating. He came from a good Catholic family. That wasn't his jam.
Yeah. Yeah, no, I never did mess around. Had opportunities, but I just, I didn't see anything in it. It wasn't like going to a better team. I had the best team going.
Love it. I love it.
Sure.
The very end of your career, they wanted to get rid of somebody, and you were friends with them and thought they did a good job, and you said, hey, if they're not here, I'm not here. What an epic way to stand up and to do it on your own terms. How did that situation come to be, and what was the feeling that you had as you walked out?
Well, I just didn't, I didn't like the way he kind of impacted the deal. And, you know, I really did it for Mary George, you know, and try and help him out. But it just wasn't a good deal. And Steve is a good person, and Kyle is a good person. But, you know, they kind of ruled the roost. And I had good people that I hired. Travis Carter, he's a great mechanic, crew chief and everything. But they were always looking for something else, and it was just a bad deal to get into, and so I bowed out.
And then after that, you went into kind of some development, trying to work with Pat on making natural gas engine cars.
That was a great program, and I still think that natural gas over electricity is the way to go. It's the product that we ought to be. It's natural. It comes out of the ground. You don't refine it or anything, and it's proven to be reliable. And we were able to do several things where we ended up, building a couple of race engines at Roush's and stuff like that. And it would have been the automotive companies, they boot it down. And I still think today we would be better off with natural gas than electricity as far as vehicles and some of the stuff goes.
And it sounds like you get a lot more compression and more power out of that natural gas.
Oh yeah, it's clean, and it's got so many good things about it. Natural gas in its own state, it's not flammable, it's not explosive. It is, and we've got an abundant supply. I mean, temperature-wise and all that stuff. I mean, it passes the tests. I don't get it. I get it because it's
you
politics.
Actually do get it. So you've had a relationship with Ralph Hansen Jr. also, who were both. Right. That's our common connection.
Ralph is he's what you call the flower of the entertainment world. He's so good with people and ideas about things like this whole deal and stuff with myself. He's guided me through this deal as to what he thought I ought to be doing and so forth like that. And this operation with Ray Skillman is incredible. It is. It's more than anything else I could have hoped for, and he was a driving force. Incredible.
Your entire career is incredible. Your book was inspiring. I feel honored that I'm able to sit down here and just be able to talk to you. I kind of, funny thing, as I read through the book, even in the interview part here, I was more enamored and amazed and really drawn into the early part of your career of the 60s and 70s.
Yeah. That was a great, I didn't know what I was doing, everybody said, well, you this, you that. I was just a kid out there taking step by step and trying to make a job for myself, but I loved racing, and I got to really know the people and treat everybody. It's just like Clint used to tell me, there's no magic in motor racing, Jim. He said, you got to realize that. And it's just practical, good experience and detail.
So in this rebuild of your office and shop, what is this called?
It's a replica of my office and the replica of what the garages used to be like, the single car garages. Now they're a lot different, but the space here is about the same. Yep. About the size of my office, which is big compared to the way it used to be.
It's such a cool thing to have this as a memorial, not a memorial, like you're still right here sitting in it.
Here, right,
you know what I mean, though, to your epic career. And Indianapolis Museum didn't want to promise that it would be a full-time display, so Ray Skillman kind of stepped in. And tell me a little bit about how it ended up here at Ray Skillman. And this museum is incredible.
Yeah. Well, we talked about it. It would be nice if we could combine a garage and my office. They did a deal with Parnelli Jones here about his career, and they did an office and not a shop. This is the first time I think anybody's done the combination. And, it was Ray. Ray is an incredible person. I've worked for a lot of good guys, Penske's and the Granatellis and Al Dean and, many, many great car owners. And yet Ray, he's right at the top of the list. He knows how to get things done, and he's got a great eye, got great people, that work with him. And it's amazing, speed-wise, how quick they do it.
Yeah, we were just here a month ago,
I know.
and it was just a shell.
No, and they came into my house and, they moved all this stuff out of here. I didn't really, have to do anything. And they had some pictures of what I had, but all of this is Ray, and his people. And he's fantastic, I tell you. He would have been a hell of a car owner in his day. I'll tell you, you would have won a lot of races with Ray because he demands results, but he knows how to get them too. I hadn't seen any of this until about 3 years ago. We used to have a hot rod show. He would have a hot rod show here every year, and I had a couple of hot rods, and the fellow that I worked with, Steve Panaritas, he would come here, and he did a lot of work for me. And when I first walked into this place, it just knocked me off my feet. I thought, how the heck could this thing be here and I not know about it, in all the years I've been around. But he certainly, he gets to the task. He does not mess around, and he's a gentleman and really one of the, probably the, one of the nicest, or the nicest person I've ever had to do business with, and he knows how to do it the right way. But again, I can't thank Ray enough to, do something like this to preserve our history. We need to have some place that looks back in time as well as look forward in time. So, this is a great combination.
It's really neat how you had such a long career and saw so many different innovations happen, and were able to be a part of it all.
Yeah, it was an era of change, from the old style cars to the roadsters to the rear engine cars. There was a lot of things happening during that period, but I was very fortunate in being at the right place at the right time.
And taking advantage of opportunities that presented themselves to you.
And aligning myself with great people, people like Penske and Patrick and Stillman and the group. I was very fortunate to have great sponsors and owners.
When did you first meet Ray Skillman?
I didn't meet him till about a year ago.
When this idea was hatched?
Yeah, I mean, it was just like we went to the Speedway and we talked to them, and they were very looking at the future rather than the past. And I just think that Ray, with his experience in the automotive industry and stuff like that, he thought there ought to be a build-up, from the early days and let people know what existed. And he certainly has. The Speedway, it looks like they're more interested in the new technology and some of the innovations for the younger people, which I can see their point too.
Do you think that the older generation was saying the same thing about you in like 1963?
Oh, yeah, they were, one of these funny cars, they used to call them, these rear engine funny cars and so forth. And, there were a lot of skeptics, that they wouldn't be safer. And, along though also came the innovations, in safety, fires, crash-worthy fuel cells and soft walls. And I mean, it went hand in hand with the safety aspect and the rise in technology.
So if you look back on your whole career, Is there anything that you didn't accomplish that you think I would really wish that I would have crested that hill?
Well, a lot of little things. No, I've had a very fortunate career. I got a wonderful wife. I mean, we've been together 60 years, and she's seen it all and put up with so much and raised the family. And, you know, she was the biggest thing in my career. My wife, Monty, yeah.
It's the rock that held it together.
Yep. She held it together with, 4 kids and back and forth between Phoenix and Indianapolis and traveling and so forth. But she was the glue.
Where did you meet her at?
She had a steakhouse, and her husband, unfortunately, was killed in an accident. And we all, the race guys, used to go up there and have this steaks, the cowboy steaks, outside on the grill. And, that's where I met her when we started dating. And it was kind of off and on there for a little while. But then, she had 3 children. And, it was a hard kind of a compromise in a way, between that and, traveling back and forth and all of that kind of stuff. But it's all worked out great, We got great grandchildren. I think we got 6 grandchildren and 4 kids. 2 of them, unfortunately, died. And, we've been married 60 years. And I've really, without her, I couldn't have done half the things I've done.
How many dogs have you had throughout your life?
Oh, we've probably had, we've always had a dog. So for 60 years that we've been married, we've had dogs. We've had Labradors. We've had mutts. We've got these new, it's a new breed, Couton de Tuliers, they call them. They were bred in in Madagascar. And beautiful little dogs. They weigh about 25, 30 pounds, but they are the greatest. And of course, the Labradors, for years, we've had many Labradors, and they were great. But then as we got older and we downsized, we had to downsize. But no, love our dogs, that's for sure.
If you look at the whole race car teams, who probably the race car drivers, because they were the celebrities and they got most of the accolades, were a little bit more snooty, maybe not, I don't know. Was there kind of a pecking order of the teams where people fell into line with like their role was this and they didn't talk and this does that make sense?
Guys were, you had to be careful what you said because sooner or later they'd get back to you, So now when you went from team to team, you tried not to bring anything that was something that they could throw back at you, I mean, it was very important to a lot of people to keep your prestige and not be a blabbermouth or, get too involved in politics.
And there probably were a whole mess of politics in racing with all that money.
Oh, yeah. You get blamed for a lot of things you don't do or are doing and not doing.
Now, in the book, it talked about how you were always calm, cool, and collected, always in a good mood, and never like lost it and like yelled at people and went crazy. And now your wife, she said the day that you guys got married and you couldn't find the airport that you were a little hot-headed that day.
I did, yeah. Yeah, we got married in Vegas and I had to be towing race car back to Indianapolis the next morning, and we couldn't find the airport. And I was cussing and swearing and carrying on, but we made it. Yeah, yeah. No, it's hard not to get too excited, but you have to look at the big picture. And I always did that, saying, well, it'll all change tomorrow, and take it as it comes. Don't have your highs too high and your lows too low. You just need to stay in the middle of the road, and I think you think a lot straighter and you accomplish a lot more.
Did you have any tricks that you used or mental things that you did to stay like that? Because it's really hard, especially with it so high pressure. There's so much on the line, not only money, but lives.
Yeah. No, I don't. For some reason, it never bothered me. I used to love to go to the racetrack in the morning and get it over with, and I don't know. My wife says I'm I'm cold-hearted.
I think we'll go with focus.
Yeah.
In your career and everything that you've done, how did that affect having a family, and what did you bring from your family side into racing and from racing into your family?
Well, not really. They they loved the racing and so forth like that, but they didn't. I think they saw how I worked and how much time I had to spend doing this and doing that and being away and all that, and they didn't want that kind of a life. Yeah.
How about when you started and you were in the very early ones with small teams and the corporate sponsors hadn't come in so much to really grow it? How did the money start to stack up as you moved through your career? Like at the beginning, it probably didn't really pay that well.
No, nothing.
But around what point did it start to be, you're like, hey, this is really cool?
Well, if you had a guy that had a good business and, could afford it, but like Dean Van Lines, Al Dean, he really, he was tight with his dollars, and he was a sportsman, and he loved racing, and that's why he did it. And there were other guys. Who was the first one that really? Well, Penske. It had to pay for itself. He didn't do it for the fun of it. He wanted to make some money, and Lindsey Hopkins, that was Coca-Cola, and little by little, the sponsorships began to grow, and I think it was, when there were more races on television, and they could justify doing it. And, Penske he was a big one. He was the one that came in there, but Penske for years was subsidized by Pat Patrick. And Pat Patrick was in the oil business, so he had a good income. But at one time, Patrick owned more of Penske Racing than Penske did. And they were great partners. They got along great, and everything went well. Yeah.
How about the innovations for the teams themselves? Like if you look at a race car team now, probably 8 people on the car team, maybe 6 people, 8 people. And then they had another whole crew that was on computers and like in a cart that got towed out there. And their job was to sit under a thing with all these computers. Yeah. Mm-hmm. How did that start to play out, and what was your feeling about it when it started changing from this garage over here?
Oh no, it was funny. I can remember when we first got our computers, and even in the office and stuff like that, when they were working, they were saying, "Oh, computers we're going to eliminate. There will be no paperwork, nothing. It'll be all on the computer. You can look it up. You can do this." Oh Christ, there's more paperwork now than there ever was. Paper companies are You know, they're real successful now, thank God to computers. But no, it was a tough transition. You know, I hated them. You know, I'd rather have a notebook and write it down, and you know, it was quicker. You know, and then you know, storing it, you had everything in a book. In fact, I had like 5 books from when I worked at Penske, and they were on a lot of these cars now, like Irwin, you know, this new series and stuff like that. They don't have any computer records on any of that stuff, but I had like about 6 notebooks on all the cars they had, and I could have really stretched him out, but I didn't. I kind of gave him a couple on each car and everything, and even today they run from that notebook, you know.
Are there any innovations that because you even though hesitant to the computer side, but you were kind of known as somebody who, like Clint was very in the past, and you were kind of coming in and you would try new things. Are there any innovations that you brought into racing that kind of like something that you can hang your hat on and said, that was mine?
Oh yeah, Stagger was one of the ones. You know, the differential in the size of the rear tires to get the car doing things. Yeah, we used to do it with, what we'd do would take a right rear. You'd take a right rear and you'd mount it up, and you'd put it on a wheel balancer, and you'd take and put about 70 pounds of air in it, and take a torch, a heating torch, and wave it over there and get that tire hot, and the tread would stretch out, so then the car would have a nice turn in on the tires. You know, we had that. We did that for a couple of years. Nobody knew what we were doing, but you know, it was all simple stuff. There was no magic. It was all mechanical.
And how did you think of doing that? Like, what was your aha moment that you're like...
Well, because when we ran sprint cars and midgets and stuff like that, we did it, you know. And they said, oh, you can't do that on Indy cars. They go too fast. The cars will wander down the road. Well, they didn't, you know, and that was a deal we had for a couple of years, and we did won a lot of races because we had better handling cars. Well, I'll tell you one thing about tires. You know, Firestone dominated for years, and then Goodyear came along. They did a lot more testing and technology and stuff like that. But then the Japanese, we did a deal with Firestone, you know, to run their tires 1 year, and they were able to, you know, buy Goodyear racing tires and look at them and take them apart and do different things and everything like that. And so we signed a contract with Firestone. That was with Scott Pruitt, and you know, rear engine cars. And we went out and did some testing, you know, for Firestone with some of the stuff they had, and we ran them for about a year. And we weren't real competitive. We were all right, you know, but 5th, 6th, 7th, stuff like that. And then we were going to dump them, and this new president took over Firestone, and in Japan, and they wanted to sign us for another year, and we thought, well, I don't know if we should or not. And finally, they said, we'll guarantee you that we'll come up with a better tire next year. So this was like in January. We go back to, you know, doing our winter testing and stuff like that. And then they said, we got some new stuff coming, and we want to do a test in Firebird Raceway. And we said, oh, okay, and everything like that. And so they show up, and they have, they fly all the stuff over, of course, and then they had 3 trailer trucks come out to Firebird in Arizona, Phoenix, And I'll tell you, it was just incredible because the tires were so much better, unbelievably better than they ever were. But what they did was they dissected all of the stuff Firestone had been running, and then they did it with chord angles and all different types of fabrics and stuff like that. But they came up with a tire that, man, it was a barn burner. And we dominated there that year.
And the tire had a really big play in that?
Oh, it was the big play. Oh, yeah. Penske missed the Indy 500 running Goodyears.
Wow.
And he bought different cars. He, but he couldn't get the tires. But no, he missed the race. He had 4 cars there. They all missed the race because of the tires.
Holy moly. Can you imagine sitting in a room with him on that day that nobody qualified?
Oh, boy. Yeah. But no, the tires were big. But, Firestone, that's a great company. That's when Scott Pruitt was driving for us. And we had mediocre cars, but Christ, we won quite a few races. Yeah. These were a lot of the cars that I had experience doing. And I don't know, I didn't collect this stuff to do this. I just thought, I got some winners here and, it brings back the memories of some of the drivers and the owners. Bob Fletcher, that was a Phoenix deal, and Fernandez and Pruitt.
That was interesting, something that I noticed in the earlier days.
That was a sprint car that Mario drove.
In your earlier days, it was more American people, and towards the end of the career, there were a lot of Europeans and Latin American people coming up.
It was all American.
Yeah.
It really. All the builders were in California and so forth like that. Yeah.
Have you worn all of these hats?
Oh, yeah. No, that Ferrari one I have.
So this is your desk from your office?
Yeah. Actually, this is not my desk.
Okay.
No, it isn't.
Gotcha.
Yeah. Ray was kind enough when we put the deal together. I had, in fact, one side of my office is a desk. I'll show you pictures of it. Desk and file cabinets and stuff like that. And he was kind enough. But everything else he's got, all the cabinets and stuff, that was all stuff.
So tell me a little bit about a couple of these awards here.
Well, that's for winning Indy and the championship. That one. Did you read the inscription on it? Mr. Patrick called me a grease monkey. You need to read that inscription.
The grease monkey. You won more times than all the rest. Congratulations on being the best. Pat Patrick and Pat Patrick Racing Team.
Yep, Roger and Sneaver and myself. Tom was a great guy.
It was so cool. So everybody had such incredibly great things to say about you in every part of the book. And this is from your Motorsports Hall of Fame induction?
Yep. And that's, where's the Indy one? That's Indianapolis, I think, isn't it? Yeah, Hall of Fame.
And there's his Indianapolis 500 Hall of Fame. Now, how about all of these pins? Was this just basically from all the races they would give you a pin?
This is the first year I was at Indy, 1961.
And that's the one that Clint got you?
Huh?
That's the one that Clint got you?
Yeah. Yep. And this is the original Ron Burton. That's the original painting. See the radiator? You can see it clearly up here that we put on, that there was all the controversy about.
How about this one here?
Yeah, that was 69. That was the year we won. And that was a real unique trophy, for its time. And then these are all pole awards. Now that one there, that was a special one there, because we were the first guys to average over 200 miles an hour qualifying. that one. They gave us 200 silver dollars. I keep, the glue must have played, and they need to glue that on there, right? But I got quite a few of those.
How was that feeling being the first guys to hit 200?
That was a pretty exciting deal.
How much of it do you think is the mechanic and how much of it is the driver?
Well, it's a combination, you know, the car, the driver, mechanic. Yeah, those are my early days at Norwood Arena. This is the guy that I talked about, Paul Duty. He was the mechanic at the Ford dealership. And we used to work on those cars in the basement of the house too.
That is just crazy.
Yeah.
So what does this piece in here represent? Your garage at the Indy 500?
Yeah, kind of. This young lad here, he worked for me for, I don't know, about 5 or 6 years. He was a heck of a good mechanic. And what happened to him, one day he left something loose, and I caught it, and he just said, "That's it, Jim, I'm getting out of this business," he said, because I couldn't stand it if something like that, you hadn't caught it, and it happened. He said, I'd kill myself.
Wow.
He was the best fellow I ever had. That's a car we built in the basement of the house.
Wow.
What I was telling you, that was that first car.
That does look awesome.
Wow.
It's got a Chevy in it, but all of these, that tail tank and all that, that's made out of 50 Mercury fender panels.
You like that.
That Dick Carmen, if he had ever gone to Indianapolis and stuff, he would have been the greatest designer ever. He would have. Yeah.
Can you imagine him and Clint and you on a team together in Indy?
Yeah. Oh, yeah. That would be, yeah.
Now, did you ever get to drive in the cars also?
Well, we used to warm them up, you know, when we were going to the short tracks. We worked out of the garages, you know, all summer long. We didn't have garages and stuff like that. And so, you know, they would let us warm the cars up, but we would respectfully do so. We wouldn't, you know. Lots of good memories. Love the dirt. Yeah. Clint was really a master at setting up a dirt car. I learned a lot from him. Yeah. Yeah. They did such a nice job. I mean, hanging these jackets up and stuff like that.
So neat that you saved all of this stuff.
I mean, I didn't really save it. I just threw it in a pile, and this guy, he worked in a electric company. He was a postman. He owned a car dealership, and this, myself and Danny Fennell, we were the ones that worked on the car with Clint. He was a post office guy, and this guy was a multi-millionaire. Yeah. Here's my wife there at Nazareth, I think.
With that's Nigel, yeah?
Yeah.
And so that's another story that I neglected to ask you about. So you and Mario had a relationship, a really strong relationship for years and years and years. And then when you were on the team where they brought Nigel Mansell in and Mario, and they didn't get along.
No.
But how did you have like your guy who's your really good friend, and then you had to go be really good buddies with his kind of enemy?
Well, Carl Horst came to me and he said, Jim, he says, Mario can take care of himself, but he says, you need to be with Nigel, and he needs somebody that he can depend on and is reliable. And he says, I'm not paying you to work on Mario's car. I'm paying you to work on Nigel's car. And I want you to be as, how do you put it, as diplomatic as you can be. And he said, you can be diplomatic, but still, it rubbed Mario the wrong way. And I can't blame him.
That's the part that I would think that it really would.
But Nigel and Nigel was a great guy. Mario's a great guy too. But, when you have two greats, it's hard to justify going one way or the other. But, Mario, he was special because we grew up together. And Nigel came on the scene and he was so talented. And, he could back up his.
Didn't he win his first race coming over from F1?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh yeah. No, he was unbelievable. So confident in what he could do. He'd come on the radio and say, hey Jim, watch this next 3 laps. You're gonna see something. He'd tell you what he was gonna do ahead of time, and then he'd do it.
From the bottom of my heart, thank you so much for sharing your career and your book and this incredible museum display and just everything. It's been so cool to meet you and talk to you, and I'm amazed.
All right. Oh, that's great. Great. Really, anything I can ever do for you, let me know.
Thank you.
Thank you.
As we close this chapter on our conversation with the great Jim McGee, we're reminded of the incredible impact an individual can have on an entire industry. Jim's legacy is woven into the very fabric of motorsports, and his influence will be felt for as long as there are engines roaring and wheels turning on the track. This interview stands as a testament to Jim's enduring passion, his innovative spirit, and the countless lives he's touched along the way. For those who have followed his career, and for those who are just learning about his incredible journey, we hope this conversation serves as a lasting tribute to a man who has given so much to the world of racing. Thank you for joining us today. We encourage you to share this interview, to pass along the stories, and to keep the legacy of Jim McGee alive in the hearts and minds of racing enthusiasts everywhere. This is more than just a look back. This is a celebration of a life well lived, a career that will be forever remembered, and a truly, truly great man. I was so honored to be able to do this interview. Thank you so much.